Hi everyone, and welcome to Midsummer's Night's Stream. This is a Shakespearean comedy, which means minimal deaths and lots of fun. This is actually the only Shakespeare play I've ever seen live, so I have a soft spot in my heart for it, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. Now, we start with Theseus and Hippolyta, who were a big Greek deal back in the mythology days. For those of you who don't know, Theseus was the king of Crete and a big Greek hero, and Hippolyta was his famous Amazonian warrior princess wife. But currently they are not yet married. They are going to be married in a couple of days, and that is what they're currently talking about, and how stoked they are for this wedding. They're so in love, it's great. This is just exposition, and then our actual leads come in. Hermia, Demetrius, Lysander are all people we care about, but they come in with Hermia's father, Aegeus. Now, Lysander and Demetrius both want to marry Hermia because she's a well-to-do, pretty young noblewoman, but Aegeus wants her to marry Demetrius while she's in love with Lysander. So he comes in and says, "Theseus, you're the king. Tell Hermia to marry Demetrius." And Lysander says, "No, Theseus, you don't understand. Hermia and I are actually in love, and we should be married." And so Aegeus says, "Lysander, I don't like you. Also, if Hermia doesn't marry Demetrius, I will literally kill her, because that's how things work here when daughters don't do how their fathers like." And Theseus says, whoa guys, okay. Hermia, you should probably do as your father's telling you to do in your own self-interest. And Hermia says, "No, Lysander and I are in love, so no." Theseus says, "Well, you might want to think about it." And she says, "Literally no, kill me before I marry for money." And Theseus says, "Oh, well, alright, take some time to think on this decision before you make it." Now, she does not currently have the upper hand, but she does bring up the fact that Demetrius is not a swell guy. Her best friend Helena was strung up by this guy a few weeks ago, and she's still waiting to marry him, and she tells Theseus this. Now, Theseus is like, "Wait, even I heard about this. Aegeus, Demetrius, you come with me. You're not a swell guy," leaving Hermia and Lysander alone for a little bit. Now, they're alone, and they trade some sweet rhymes about how sad they are they can't marry each other, which, remember, Shakespeare rhyming means true love. So they come out and they make this plan to run away from Athens together to Lysander's aunt's house, I believe, so they can get married and be together forever. Just as they have concocted this wonderful plan, Helena, who we've mentioned before, comes in looking very sad, like a droopy sunflower. And Hermia says, "Wow, Helena, why so glum?" And Helena says, "My life is awful because the man I love, Demetrius, does not love me. Everything is awful. I long for death." Hermia says, "Wow, that's pretty awful. Meanwhile, I have my great boyfriend right here, and we're going to run away together. Tonight, it's going to be great." And Helena says, "Oh, well, good luck to you guys, I guess. I'll just wallow in my misery here in Athens." And so, Hermia and Lysander hook arms, probably skip off, and Hermia says, "Bye forever, Helena. I hope Demetrius falls in love with you or whatever, because that would really work out well for all of us." And so Helena's alone on stage now, and she says, "Even though it probably doesn't make much sense, and Hermia is my best friend, I'm going to go tell Demetrius those two are running away together. So maybe he will love me." No one in this play has a really good understanding of logic, but it's going to work out, I promise. So Helena leaves to go tell Demetrius about Lysander and Hermia's plan, and that ends the scene. Alright, Act 1, Scene 2. Now we are in a completely new setting with a completely new cast of characters. Cool. Because this is a comedy, there's going to be a bunch of different side plots throughout that add up into one very big plot at the end. It's awesome. You have to keep track. But so the lovers that we met last scene are the main plot, and now we're meeting one of those, subplots. We're at this guy Quince's house. All these guys are coming in. They're all his buddies. They're all hanging. Finally, this loser bottom comes in. He closes the door. You find out that all these guys are actually actors, and they're going to be putting on a play for Theseus and Hippolyta's wedding. Plays! It's so exciting, they're so stoked. Who doesn't love plays? I love plays. So Quinn starts handing out parts, and the loser bottom, who came in last, gets the part of Pyramus, who is the lead, as evidenced by the name of the play, Pyramus and Thisbe. But you know, being the lead isn't good enough for Bottom. He wants to be Thisbe, and the wall, and the tree. Finally, all the other actors tell him to shut up. You get what you get and you don't get upset. And that's the end of the scene. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Act 2 of Midsummer's Night Dream. You got all your characters and plot lines in your heads? Because we're going to start on a new one. Act 2 actually starts with another completely new cast of characters, and this time we're in the fairy court, which is in the woods near Athens, which, as you may remember, is where our young lovers are headed. We meet Puck, who is a big trickster in fairy mythology, and other people you're going to need to know about is Oberon, king of the fairies, and Titania, his wife, queen of the fairies. These guys don't just exist in Shakespeare, they're really big in fairy-based mythology, but right now they just exist to mess around with people. So Puck right now is talking with some unnamed fairy about, you know, the goings-on at the fairy court, and the fairy is saying, oh yeah, well, you know, Titania has this little human child she likes a lot, and Puck's like, yeah, I know. And they're like, but Oberon wants to use him as, you know, a fairy knight, and Puck's like, yeah, cool. And they're like, but Titania just wants to keep him and give him flower crowns and food and stuff. So they're fighting. And Puck's like, I already know all of this. Why are you telling me? And the fairy's like, oh, you know, exposition for the audience. And that flies off. And Puck is like, well, I'm just a guy who likes to mess around with people, so this sounds like a pretty good situation for me. Just as he says this, Oberon and Titania come in. They're fighting about the kid. They fight for a few minutes, trade some pretty slick burns, and Titania leaves. Oberon ushers Puck over. He says, hey, Puck, I have an idea. We're going to pull a prank. Puck's like, I love pranks. Lay it on me. Oberon says, I know about this secret magical flower where if you put the juice of the flower on someone's eyes, they have to fall in love with whoever they see next. So you gotta do it when they're sleeping. And Puck's like, sweet, so what are we gonna do with it? They're like, Oberon says, we're gonna put it on Titania's eyes, and then you're gonna put like a gross animal or something in front of her, and she's gonna be in love with it. And Puck's like, that's disgusting, I'm in. So Puck flies off to find this magical love flower with the juice, and Oberon's just hanging out, you know, waiting. And our friends, Demetrius and Helena, run by. As you may remember, Demetrius is trying to find Hermia and Lysander. Helena is following him because she's in love with him, and he does not quite return the feelings. He's saying, Helena, go away, leave me alone, you're ugly and I hate you. She does not leave him alone. She's not ugly, but he does hate her. So she keeps following him. And Oberon, who they can't see because he's a fairy and they're a human, says, wow, what a nice young lady. We should help her out for a reason that is never stated. And so Puck flies in at that moment, and Demetrius says, do you have enough love flower juice? And he's like, I have so much love flower juice. He's like, alright, cool, so I'm going to put some of this on Titania's eyes, and you should go help out that young lady and put some on the young man's eyes so he'll fall in love with her, because she seems nice. Puck is like, alright, seems cool, I'll do it. And so he goes flying off with no idea of what this young man or young woman looks like, just that they're there in this very big forest, somewhere. In hindsight, Oberon probably shouldn't have chosen Puck for this task. But he did. The trickster fairy, not the best reputation for errand boy. Anyway, Puck flies off to find both Titania and these human lovers lost in the woods, and thus ends scene. Alright, welcome back to Midsummer's Night Dream, Act 2, Scene 2. And we're back with Queen Titania, who was in a bit of a huff last time we saw her. And she says, oh, please, cute little fairy attendants I have with me, sing me a sweet little lullaby to end this wreck of a day. her cute little fairy attendants who are currently with her sing her a sweet little lullaby, and she goes to sleep, and she stays here right on the ground for the rest of the scene. Now, just because she's a fairy, that means any humans who pass her will not be able to see her. However, King Oberon comes sneaking in. He's a fairy, so he's got this covered. Sees her on the ground asleep, and he has some of the love flower juice. So he puts a little drop on each of her eyes and sneaks right back out, saying as he goes, "No, I hope she falls in love with something really ugly because it would serve her right," which is not very husbandy behavior, but, don't take life lessons from Shakespeare really ever. So she's on the ground asleep. We're just going to leave her there with the love juice on her eyes. And Lysander and Hermia come running in. Now, she's a fairy. They can't see her. They don't worry about it. They stand in the woods for a little bit. They flirt with each other. And then they decide to also take a nap on the ground. Now, this is a worse idea for humans than it is for fairies. Again, don't take any life lessons from this play. But they lie down, decide to have some shut-eye, flirt a little more, and go right to sleep. Now, our friend Puck comes back in, and he has some love flower juice too, and he mistakes this cute young couple for the other cute not couple Oberon told him to look for. And he says, "Oh, this guy must be the jerk Oberon was telling me about who doesn't love this sweet girl over here. I'll just take care of this." And he put some of the love flower juice on Lysander's eyes, who did not need fixing. So clearly there's going to be a problem in a few minutes. Demetrius and Helena run by just as Puck leaves, with Helena saying, "Please, Demetrius, love me." Demetrius saying, "I need to find Hermia and Lysander, and you are just slowing me down, you ugly dog. Leave me alone." Helena's out of breath, so she stops, and Demetrius keeps running, right past where Lysander and Hermia are. He's probably the least bright character in this play. And Helena actually does notice Lysander and Hermia asleep on the ground, and she's like, "Oh my god," as most people would be if they saw a person unmoving on the forest floor. She shakes Lysander, and he wakes up, and he had the flower juice on his eyes. He's in love with Helena now. There has been a big mix-up in this love square that's happening. He says, "Oh man, Helena, you're so gorgeous. Marry me." And she's like, "Ah, yeah, really funny joke, dude. Alright, I need to go find Demetrius." He's like, "No, dude, I'm serious. I love you. I will kill Demetrius, and we can be together forever." Now, Helena's had a pretty rough time before this play and during it, and now she thinks that this guy, who she thought was pretty decent, is playing a joke on her about how nobody loves her at all. So she starts crying and runs off to find Demetrius. And Lysander's like, "Wait, don't leave me, I love you," and he goes chasing after her. Hermia is now asleep alone on the ground in the forest. But luckily, after they leave, she wakes up from a nightmare where Lysander left her. So she stands up, looks around, Lysander isn't there. She's like, "Oh, well, maybe he, left," and she goes looking for him. So, that was Act 2, pretty short. Please, as always, leave any comments or questions below, and I will see you guys again next time for Act 3. Good luck studying. Hi everyone, welcome back to Act 3 of A Midsummer's Night Dream. This one is a little lengthier than the other ones have been, but it's still just 2 scenes, so let's hop in. Now, we're back in the same section of the woods that we were in last scene. However, now instead of the 4 lovers, we have the actors hanging out, with Titania still asleep a little ways off. Again, they don't see her, they're not fairies. So we're back with our actor friends, Peter Quince, his annoying friend Bottom, and all the other inconsequential actors. And they're trying to find a way to make the story of Pyramus and Thisbe PG, so as to not cause any fainting in the female ladies of the audience. Now, for those of you who don't know, Pyramus and Thisbe is a very famous Greek myth, very similar to Romeo and Juliet, but remember, the myths came first. So, Pyramus and Thisbe, they're 2 young lovers, tragically separated by a wall, and they decide to run away together, but on the night they run away together, Thisbe gets to the tree first, and there's a mountain lion, so she runs up the tree, but she loses her scarf and the mountain lion gets the scarf in its mouth. And when Pyramus gets there, he sees the scarf in the mountain lion's mouth, and he jumps to conclusions, assumes Thisbe is dead, kills himself. Thisbe climbs out of the tree. She sees Pyramus is dead, really kills herself. It's all very similar to something we've heard before. But remember, PG, no blood, fainting ladies. The actors are trying to find a way to make this work for everyone. So they cut out all the blood, they cut out the lion, they cut out the prologue for some reason. They decide that someone's going to play a wall, which is going to be hilarious later on, and is just hilarious as a concept. And basically they find a way to make this play as boring as possible. However, we're not going to see it until Act 5, so you don't really need to worry about this right now. Now, Puck flies in to see all these shenanigans happening with Titania, and he decides to make one of these guys who she's going to fall in love with. But none of them are quite ugly enough to fit the standard Oberon has given him. So, he pulls over Bottom, pulls him off stage for a minute, does some fairy magic, and Bottom comes off with this donkey head, which is terrifying. Although it probably isn't terrifying on stage. But just imagine a donkey-headed guy, and you'll probably get the shivers too. Now all his actor friends are horrified, so they all run off just to a corner, and Bottom doesn't even realize anything's wrong. He's just like, guys, what's the problem? Let's practice. Let's get this play on the road. And his friends are trying to tell him from a safe distance what's happened, but he doesn't listen. So they run off, and Titania wakes up. Now, Bottom is a donkey-headed man right now, and she sees him, but that doesn't matter. She had the flower love juice on her eyes. So she says, "Oh man, you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my whole life, and I love you." And he doesn't hear her at first, because remember, fairy, human, can't see. So she makes herself visible to this guy to prove her love, and says, "Oh man, you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, and I love you." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." He doesn't really understand that she's a fairy or that he is a donkey head or anything. So she says, "We're going to be together forever." And he's like, "Cool." And she calls over her cute little fairy attendants from before, whose names are actually Cobweb, Mustard Seed, Moth, and Peace Blossom, for any interested parties out there. And she says, "Bring this beautiful guy all our jewels and food." And Bottom's like, "Jewels and food? Sweet." So they go off to enjoy said food and jewels, and that is the end of this scene. This is the longest scene in the whole play, but just stick with me and it'll be done before you know it. Try to hang on, almost every character shows up. So we start out with Oberon and Puck, and they're talking about this sweet prank they just pulled on Titania, and Oberon says, "So who'd you get her with?" And Puck says, "Well, I found this guy, and I put a donkey head on him, and then I did the love flower juice on her eyes. So now she's in love with this donkey actor, freak man of nature." And Oberon's like, "That's hilarious! Good job!" As they're laughing about this, Hermia and Demetrius run by, and Oberon's like, "Oh, hang on, wait, that was the guy I was telling you to put the love flower juice on his eyes. Did you get him?" And Puck goes, "Oh." Helena is not currently in the scene, so Puck still doesn't know who he's talking about. Hermia is being chased by Demetrius, saying, "I'm trying to find Lysander, please leave me alone, I don't love you, leave me alone forever." Demetrius is trying to convince her that he does know where Lysander is, but he's a liar. She wises up, and eventually she manages to get rid of him. Defeated, he lies down on the ground for, a nice forest nap, since that seems to be all the rage in this play. Oberon turns to Puck and says, "That was the guy you were supposed to love flower juice. You must have gotten someone else." And Puck is like, "I did get someone else." And Oberon says, "Okay, well, this will work out because I have some more of this love flower juice and you can put it on his eyes and make him fall in love with the other girl, who you still haven't seen." And Puck says, "Oh, okay." So they go love flower juice Demetrius and walk back out. So after they're gone, Demetrius, sleeping on the ground, is joined by Lysander, who's running after Helena. Helena says, Lysander, please stop teasing me. This isn't funny, because jokes about people who love you are never funny. And Lysander says, no, Helena, I am really in love with you. I will leave everything to be with you. You're gorgeous, you're amazing, you're an angel on earth. But she says, no, I don't love you. I love Demetrius. And he says, well, Demetrius doesn't love you, and I do. So things seem to have worked out here. Which is kind of a salt in the wound, but we'll leave it for now because he's under love flower juice influence and doesn't really know what he's saying. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Demetrius wakes up right at this moment and says, oh my gosh, Helena, you perfect human being. Stay with me forever. I love you. Which would be great for Helena if she believed him, but now she thinks he's in on this whole practical joke, which the whole Helena is unloved by everyone practical joke, which would be a horrible practical joke in real life. Do not play on your friends. And so she starts crying some more, because now these two guys are in on the joke, and she's immediately joined by Hermia, who has finally found Lysander. And she says, Lysander, I'm so glad I found you, my love. Let's keep running away from Athens. And Lysander says, no, I am in love with Helena now. Things worked out that way. So Hermia turns on Helen and says, how did that happen? And Helena says, oh, great. You, my best friend, are in on this horrible joke too. I hate all of you, please leave me alone forever. And Hermia says, what practical joke? And Helena says, the practical joke where you're all talking about how no one loves me. Obviously these two couldn't have come up with it because they're dumb as stumps, so you must be the mastermind. Hermia says, that is true, but I still don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, Lysander and Demetrius are getting into a bit of a fist fight about Helena behind their backs, and Hermia turns around, sees this, and tries to stop Lysander, who shoves her onto the ground. This was a big no-no. I was about to say in the past, but really at any time in history, including the present. And Demetrius says, wow, you just hit a woman. That's pretty awful. And Lysander says, no, I'd never hit a woman. That was a mistake. Even if I hate Hermia, I would never strike her. And Hermia says, okay, this really isn't funny anymore. You shouldn't be saying you hate me when you love me. And he says, no, I'm serious. I hate you, and I love Helena. She's gorgeous, and I'm going to marry her. So now Hermia turns on Helena, who she thinks is the real mastermind through this whole Helena is suddenly loved by everyone stick. And Helena starts saying, oh no, it's not my fault, and Hermia threatens to, claw her eyes out. And Helena says, you know what? I'm done. This was a real funny joke, guys, but I hope you've all had your laughs, and I'm going to go back to Athens to be alone forever. The two guys are like, wait, no, Helena, don't leave. They run off to fight each other some more. Helena leaves, Hermia leaves to follow her. Oberon and Puck come back out. They're like, well, we really made a mess of things. Luckily, there's an undoing love flower juice plant somewhere in these woods, and we happen to have some. This is a very convenient plot device, but it just happens sometimes. So they acquire some of this undoing flower juice, and Oberon leaves Puck in charge again, which we've all decided is a pretty bad decision, but it keeps happening. And Puck has Lysander and Demetrius come back in. He lures both of them back and forth by using the other's voice, Lysander by using Demetrius' voice, Demetrius by using Lysander's voice, etc. And eventually they get so tired of chasing each other / Puck that they both fall on the ground for a secondary forest nap. This is a really bad idea. Do not be taking forest naps, even though every character in this play seems to take at least 3. So they're asleep on the ground. Hermia and Helena come back in and also fall asleep on the ground without noticing the other two are there. And everyone's just taking a big cat nap on the forest floor. Puck comes in and says, well, this is convenient that they're all on a foot in each other. He takes the undoing flower juice and sprinkles some on Demetrius' eyes. Not on Demetrius' eyes, on Lysander's eyes, to work everything out, and just kind of leaves them there on the forest floor for everything to work itself out next act. And that's Act 2. Kind of long. Hope you didn't get mixed up with any of the names or that unfortunate love square that just happened. And I will see you next time for Act 3. Good luck studying, and I will see you next time. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Act 4 of Midsummer's Night Dream. This one's a really short one since everything's kind of worked out, so we might just as well finish this up. So we're back in the woods where our 4 human lover friends are taking a nap, but they don't really matter right now because Titania and her new donkey man boyfriend are taking a walk by with her fairy servants. Now, Bottom has gotten used to being pampered by these fairy kids real quick. So he's like, yep, more caviar, more rubies, more food, because he's an actor. They probably didn't get a lot of food, which is probably an inside joke with Shakespeare himself. But Titania doesn't even really notice that this guy's being kind of a jerk because she is so enchanted by his donkey man self that she probably doesn't even hear what he's saying. After she sends her little fairy servants away, she and Bottom lie down on the ground for another nap. I would think everyone in this play is pretty well rested by now, but I guess we have to have just one more. So Oberon and Puck come back in, and Oberon's like, you know, Puck, this is just sad. This was hilarious while it lasted, but she is my wife and joke has to be over. So he goes over and he still has some of the undoing flower juice on her eyes, and he sprinkles it on and wakes her up. She wakes up and says, oh man, Oberon, I just had the worst dream I've ever had in my whole life. And Oberon says, yep, not a dream actually. There's your donkey man boyfriend right next to you. And she says, oh man, how did that happen? He explains how it happened, but for some reason, she forgives him, and forgives him about the whole human kid thing too. Because despite the fact that he was kind of a jerk, he is still better than the donkey man boyfriend. They go off together, and Puck says, well, I guess this whole donkey head thing is kind of useless now for comedy's sake. So he takes it off Bottom, and Bottom's just a regular guy again. He stays asleep on the ground for the rest of this scene. So now, Theseus and Hippolyta are walking through the woods. Now you might remember them from the beginning of the play, famous Greek myth people getting married. They're still so stoked for this wedding, they're talking about it with Hermia's dad, who's with them. And then all of a sudden they find our 4 human lover friends on the ground asleep. They don't say, why are these kids asleep on the forest floor? Instead they say, why are they all asleep together like pals? Theseus wakes them all up, and he says, whoa, Lysander, why are you guys all sleeping together like you're friends? Because everyone knows you're not. And Lysander says, well, your kingliness, if truth be told, me and Hermia were actually trying to run away from Athens tonight because we're in love and her dad won't let us be together. Her dad kind of mutters something about this being preposterous, but no one pays attention to him. And because Demetrius gets up and says, yeah, actually, I'm in love with Helena now. So everything seems to strangely work out with no explanation. And this is pretty bad for Hermia's dad, but no one cares about him because Theseus says, wow, this is great. Because this means, with 1 day in advance, you can have a 3-couple joint wedding. Everyone's like, 3-couple joint wedding? Wow! So they all go back off to Athens to plan this 3-couple joint wedding. And that's the end of the scene. Alright, Act 4, Scene 2. Now we're back again with the actors, and they're all ready for this big play, but they can't find Bottom, who has been having some misdemeanors. So they're going through the forest, round and round, they're looking for this guy, and so finally they decide he's dead, because that's what you assume when you can't find people. They all start crying, even though they didn't really like him, and that's when he decides to show up. He's like, hey guys, actually I'm fine, and he doesn't elaborate on all the weird stuff that happened to him. But so they're all like, Bottom, you're fine. Let's go do this big play for Theseus and Hippolyta's wedding, which is happening right now. Also, 2 other couples were added, so we need to make this play 3 times as good. He's like, cool. And they go off to do the big play for the big wedding. Now, and that was the rest of Act 4, and I will see you one last time for Act 5 next time. As always, please leave any comments or questions you have below. I will see you next time for one last round. And good luck! Hi everyone, and welcome back one last time to Midsummer's Night Dream. We have reached Act 5, and now all that's left is the big play to tie all those loose ends together. We come back with Theseus and Hippolyta, freshly married. We took a little skip in time right after the big wedding. And they're talking about how ridiculous the young lover's story is. I mean, fairies, love flower juice, undoing flower juice, psh. But they get over it, and our 4 kids come in, and they're all really excited for this big play. They all take a seat, and the play begins after Theseus' friend Philostrate introduces it. Now, Shakespeare loves this play within a play junk. You may know that he uses it again in Hamlet, which we'll get into more later. Maybe he just loves plays, maybe he just loves himself. We'll never know now that he's dead, but you can take a guess. So this play starts, and it starts with a prologue, as all plays did back then, where they tell you everything that happens and then expect you to stay. So they tell, again, of Pyramus and Thisbe, tragic lovers, separated by things. They both die, it's sad, Romeo and Juliet. So all the guys in the audience are like, oh, well, this is just going to be very disappointing on many levels. But the play starts, and they decide to be hecklers, which is fun for us as an audience. So the guy with the first line in this play within a play is the wall, which is hilarious, and the guys say it's hilarious because it is hilarious. And then Pyramus comes out, and you may remember that Pyramus is our annoying friend Bottom. So he goes on and on and on with his monologue, and Theseus kind of does the metaphorical tomato toss, going, get on with it! And Pyramus turns around in response to Theseus on stage, which as an actor and a person with common sense, you never ever do. But anyway, Thisbe comes out, and she and Pyramus make plans through this wall being played by a person to meet up by a tomb to run away together. And then the interlude of the play starts. Now, Theseus turns to his new wife and says, this is a very disappointing play. And she says, indeed, but it's our wedding play, so we have to stick with it. She actually says, this is the silliest stuff I've ever heard, which may be one of my favorite Shakespeare lines of all time, because you can use it in almost any situation. This interlude ends real quickly, and all the actors come back on stage. Now, we have some great new actors in this scene, including Talking Moonlight and a lion that tells everyone not to be scared of him. Because remember, we're trying to keep that PG-13 rating. So, this lion's creeping around, and Thisbe comes out, sees the lion, runs up this tree, scarf falls off, gets in the lion's mouth, and everyone's like, oh, I wonder what will happen now. You already know. They told you in the prologue. People keep heckling on stage, off stage, on stage and off stage. They're watching the play that we are watching. And so Pyramus, as Bottom, comes back out, sees the scarf, goes on and on and on about how sad he is, that his love is dead, and kills himself. Hippolyta says, wow, I hope Thisbe doesn't take her that long to kill herself, because she's hardcore. Thisbe climbs back down the tree, sees that Pyramus is dead right there, does not say nearly as much as he did, kills herself, and the play is finally over. Everyone cheers! Not us, the people who were watching the play within the play. They're so excited this play is over because it was a bad play. All the actors stand up, they take their bows, they leave. Our actors talk about how bad a play it was, and then they leave. Finally, the fairy court comes back on, and Puck says goodbye to everyone in the audience along with the rest of the fairies, saying that, well, we hope you enjoyed the play, but if you didn't, then just pretend it was all a dream, which is a cool way to end a play. So that was it for Midsummer's Night Dream. I hope you enjoyed it. I really did. Please, as always, leave any comments or questions below, and I will see you next time for the next production. Good luck studying.